Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. With me again is Jonathan Small. This is his 10th appearance on the podcast. He's one of my favorite people in the world, favorite podiatrists in the world. We got on really well. And the reason I got Jonathan back on is because way back in episode 6, his first appearance, we did an episode called Work Smarter, Not Harder. And so wanted to get Jonathan back on because this episode is going to be titled Work Smarter, Not Harder, Reloaded, sort of like the Matrix Reloaded. So Jonathan, welcome back.
Oh, thanks for having me again. Thanks for saying such nice things, Tyson. It's always good to be here and always good to see you.
Well, we always have a good laugh too.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. And hopefully today will be fun as well.
Yeah, hopefully. If it's not, well, what happened? But the other reason I wanted to go over this subject again, well, there's two reasons. First one, and I do this myself, when you come across a podcast, a lot of the times once you find a podcast, so I'm sure there's podiatrists that have only recently come across the Podiatry Legends. Rarely do you go back to episode 1 and listen all the way through, which very few people do that. And I've come across podcasts myself where I'll listen to a show and I go, oh, I really like this, but I'm not going back to episode 1 4 or 5 years ago because sometimes it just seems a little bit outdated. So I may go back to about 20 and listen through. The second reason is because you're going to be in Brisbane on the 21st and 22nd of July, and you and I are going to be doing the Work Smarter, Not Harder, Reloaded program together. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So people, if you're in Brisbane, you have no excuse not to attend, but this is what we're going to talk about today anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I can't believe that it was way back in January 2019 when you put out that first episode, Tyson, episode number 6. So you'd only been going for maybe a month before that. And look how many episodes you've got out there now. It's a fantastic resource that you've developed for podiatrists. It's the Podiatry Legend podcast.
Well, yeah, we're in the 260s now, which is fantastic. It's the 4 years has gone really fast.
But hadn't the world changed in that time?
A little bit, and that was part of why we sort of tagged on the reloaded side of things, because when you first started the Work Smarter, Not Harder,
you have to think about that every time, don't you, Tyson?
I do, because I don't want to say work harder, not smarter.
I know.
Which is what some podiatrists do. They work really hard and they're not really smart about what they're doing. They repeat the same problems, the same mistakes. They scream at everyone, oh, I need help. And you go, well, here's a program that you could follow, or here's a book you could read, or here's a podcast you could listen to. And they go, oh yeah, no, I really don't want to know that much about it.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
It always makes me laugh when podiatrists do say that life is overwhelming for them, but they don't do anything to then ease that overwhelm.
Yeah, well, there was a post I saw this morning. I think it was on UK Podiatry, I'm pretty sure it was UK Podiatry page on Facebook, and somebody was on there saying, "Oh, I'm a new graduate. I'm working in the NHS. I'm feeling overwhelmed. When will this pain and suffering disappear?" And there was a lot of positive feedback, and of course there was the odd troll that threw some dumb shit in. But I don't normally always comment, but I did say to them, everything is hard until it's easy. And I can totally understand as a new graduate working for the first time, full patient load, seeing patients day in, day out, having to switch your mind on and off to different problems. It can be overwhelming, but to any new graduate that's listening to this, everything is hard until it's easy. Your brain will catch up with how the day works.
Absolutely, and it's a key part of Work Smart Not Harder is to make sure that you're learning more and making time to learn more, because that way that will take away that feeling of imposter syndrome, insecurity, overwhelm, all of that, because you'll just feel that much more confident in your dealings with patients, and then that ties in with the charging side of things. And if you're charging in private practice appropriately, that will mean that you don't have to be back-to-back patients all the time and not having time to do any learning and developing yourself and growing yourself.
Yeah, well, that was the comment that somebody said. Well, their question was, should I stay in the NHS or should I go into private practice? And there were like conflicting reports. I've never worked in the NHS, don't really know how it works. I have worked in private practice and it's a lot of fun. So from my point of view, I'm thinking private practice is fun. But some people say, oh, if you can't cut it in the NHS, you won't cut it in private practice. And other people say, oh, no, private practice is a lot easier than NHS. So I have no idea.
Yeah. It's an interesting one doing that change from NHS to private, because of course I've done that. I've done both areas.
Yeah.
I've also worked in offender health as well. So I've had a fair mix within
What
the
was that thing you
podiatry.
said? What were you working in?
Prisons, offender health.
That's exactly what I thought you said. Offender health.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're running around. Anyone here offended anybody recently? I offend people. I offend
We
people
call
all
it
the
offender
time.
health. I don't know what you call it over there, but over here it's called offender health,
Yeah.
because you're working with the offenders that are in prison. But yeah, so it is interesting. I'm not sure that one is easier than the other, one is more difficult than the other. It is what you make it,
Yeah.
and often it's the environment that you end up in. You can have good NHS clinics and good NHS managers, good NHS structures. Equally, you can have bad ones, and it's the same in private practice.
Oh,
If
definitely.
you're going into somebody else's practice, it could be a good employer, or it can be a bad employer, a good practice, a bad practice. And it's really about where you end up. But the key thing is if you're not happy with what you're doing, do something about it to change that.
Yeah. And don't leave podiatry because you've had one bad job or even two bad jobs. You would have started podiatry for a reason. There was something about it that interested you, whether it was just healthcare in general. I just think don't pull the pin too early. Is hang in there.
Absolutely, yeah. I was going to leave it with in my first 1 or 2 years. I was leaving podiatry. Certainly, I was leaving NHS podiatry and probably leaving the profession, because it just wasn't fulfilling. It just wasn't giving me what I was after. But then I made the change, and that then started a whole knock-on effect. And it's making those changes throughout your life when you hit these times when you're maybe fed up, maybe not engaged, maybe disenchanted, maybe you just not getting fulfillment, that you
Yeah.
make change that will put you on a better path, so you can achieve more for yourself, achieve more happiness. Because at the end of the day, we only get one life, Tyson. This is it as far as we know. Yeah, and there's no point of spending that life being unhappy. We've got to find out where our happiness lies, and go after it with both guns blazing. We want to live our most fulfilling life. We want to make sure we're giving the best of ourselves to the world, and we're getting the best for ourselves from the world.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think every podiatrist at some stage has thought about giving it away for whatever reason. It wasn't that I wanted to leave. I think my first day of podiatry, the head of the podiatry department asked me to leave, but I said, I just got here, so I'm gonna hang around for a little bit longer. I annoyed him on the first day. I don't recommend that. Yeah, I do not recommend falling asleep in your first lecture when the head of the department is talking and you nod off, because it wasn't very exciting. And he came, I did say, maybe you should leave. I said, just got here. I think I'll hang around a little bit longer. 30 something years later, still here.
Yeah, still do.
What I found is actually podiatry just got better. The longer I stayed in, the more fun it became. And the longer I stayed in, the more I realized I didn't know, which then always made you realize there's more to learn. And it doesn't mean you're a good or bad podiatrist if there's another person that knows far more than you in a particular area. It just means you're different, which is what makes it interesting.
Yeah, I think if you're of the sort that when you start on your journey, you seem to be ahead of everybody else. I think it can get a bit lonely, a bit isolated for you,
Yeah.
because you're not finding people to engage with on the same level as you. But then what happens? Everybody catches up, and that's when it gets really exciting, because actually you're on this tidal wave of movement within the profession. And I think that's what we're riding at the moment, helped by your Podiatry Legend podcast, helped by courses that are run by lots of great people in the profession. And it just really stimulates individuals, and it engages all the podiatrists to be better versions of themselves, to give themselves a better tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm just looking at your shirt. You've got the Podiatry Legend shirt
I
on.
have, yeah. I thought I'd wear it for you. Look at that. Oh, it's not showing on Zoom. Sorry. Oh, there we
Oh,
are.
there we go. Yeah, I just realised that I should have
Proud
worn
I,
mine. I didn't. Instead, I've got a microphone shirt on, a microphone
proud owner of it
manufacturer.
after. I think it was after the Work Smarter Not Harder you sent that one over to me. So
But
I had this out.
we're looking like a team. We've both got our black shirts on and bald heads, so
Yeah.
looking like a gang.
Maybe we shouldn't call it Reloaded. Maybe we should just call it the bald version because when you started this, you had some hair.
I did. I had hair back in 2019, and it just disappeared. That's what the podcast does to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I said to my wife, I said, "Does it bother you I don't have any hair now?" She said, "No, I actually feel safer walking down the street with you." I said, "So what? I look like a thug now?" She said, "No, but just once you shave it all off, like you can go bald." She said, "But once you decide to shave it off," she said, "that's commitment. What else are you prepared to do?"
Okay.
Yes, and I went, okay, good point. So let's get on to
Interesting you
the.
say
Yeah.
interesting you say about being the thug. So when I went bald, I was only 23 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did look quite skinheadish. Yeah. I mean I decided to shave like you have. You know, it was you'd have a bit of hair, but I decided to take it all off at 23. And so to tone that look down, I wore glasses. I stopped wearing contact lenses and I wore glasses because it just made it a bit softer. I thought it made it softer for patients rather than thinking they're being treated by a skinhead. But now it's not an issue, of course, but way back in your 20s, that's what
Mm.
I ended up doing.
Yeah, in the
The
80s and
sacrifices you
80s and
make for patients.
90s. Yeah, 80s and 90s. That was big skinhead times too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So
Things
interesting fact.
people listen to this podcast sometimes and must think, "Wow, well, that was an interesting fact. Thank you for sharing that." So, Work Smarter, Not Harder Reloaded. When you first started Work Smarter, Not Harder, it was coming out, or it was COVID times. That's when, and everyone was panicking.
But when we started it, it was in 2016. I'd run it before you
Oh,
started.
okay. It was before COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd done a fair bit of it, and it was based on four key principles. It was based on increasing your income, improving your efficiency, reducing your costs, and planning for your future. That was Work Smarter Not Harder 1. That was the first one-day course, and they're the key principles to the course, to what I try and get podiatrists to engage with in private practice, because it really does take a podiatrist who may not be the happiest podiatrist, maybe a bit disgruntled, and transforms them to being a really happy podiatrist was their patients sing their praises, which was a real key part of it. And then after we'd done it for about 2-3 years, there was a desire from people who'd been on the course to do more. So we set up Work Smarter Not Harder 2, the second day's course, which was not based on principles, but based on psychological principles, basically, around mindsets and how to overcome your fears and dealing with your beliefs and really engaging your brain in the whole process. So that's where the smarter bit really kicks in. And so it became a 2-day course, which is what we bring into Brisbane, of course, as a 2-day course.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that because you had Work Smarter, Not Harder 1, and then you came up with part 2. And when you're coming to Australia, I said, why don't we just put the two together and make it a 2-day course? Because no point coming all the way over here for 1 day.
Yeah.
So we thought, let's make it 2 days. So with the first part about increasing your income, this will sound silly, but why is that so important?
So it's income for the practice primarily. Okay, if you've got your own practice, primarily increasing income for your practice, so that you can invest for better patient care. So you can invest in new equipment, you can invest in cutting edge equipment, the equipment that's going to help your patients to the best of your ability. It's also going to give you income to invest in yourself and your staff with their learning and their knowledge, so that you're not having to always be sort of really busy and rammed with patient care, so you're not taking care of your own growth. That's the why the increasing the income was the important part of it.
Yeah. I always find it funny when somebody says, "Oh, I'm not money focused, I'm patient focused." And I'm like, well,
Mm,
if you're not money focused, then you're not patient focused either.
that's
Because
fair
you
enough.
cannot look after your patients the way that they deserve to be looked after if you do not have the right equipment to be able to do everything. And the only way you have the right equipment is if your clinic is making money, or you went into a lot of debt to buy the equipment at the start, which some people will do that. And therefore you want to get it paid off as fast as possible. Sooner you get it paid off, the more you can update your equipment. And so I always find that funny. People, oh no, I'm not focused on money. If you have your own
That's
business,
right.
you need to be making money.
Yeah, and
It's that
I
simple.
think early days people thought that I was very money focused, and that was what it was about. But no, for me, it's about getting patient care absolutely right. And as you know from subsequent episodes, that's where it comes from with me. You know, we've done a fair few episodes that cover all of the information around transforming yourself for the betterment of your patients, basically. We've done those episodes on fear and comfort zones. We've
Yeah.
done episodes on what's good podiatry. We've done episodes on even bad reviews. There's all sorts of things that we've covered around the psychology of delivering good patient care.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to money sometimes, because it's like, I always say the world famous book, It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry. It's funny when I wrote that, how some people said to me, oh, that's just so terrible that you're so focused on money. And actually pointing out, someone said, read through the whole book. At what point do I actually talk about money in the book?
Mm,
So I don't really talk about it. I said, what I
no.
talk about is setting up a good business, looking after your patients. If you do those two things, I said, the money will just flow to you. If you go just chasing the money and not worrying about your patients, then you will fail.
Yeah, yeah,
And some people do that.
absolutely.
So because when you're talking about like increasing your income in podiatry, a lot of it would probably have to do with your thinking and your beliefs around money.
Oh, absolutely, and that very much ties in with the psychology side, because our understanding, individual understanding of money, and our beliefs around it goes all the way back to our childhood and how we interacted with money then, and how our parents interacted with money, and that carries on into our adulthood. And it's not our own thoughts and beliefs; it's what was kind of indoctrinated into us when we were younger,
Yeah.
and we have to let go of that in adulthood, particularly when you're running your own business, because we shouldn't be making assumptions that our patients think about money the same way that we do. You and I think about money differently, Tyson, and that's just the nature that it is. And there's different money personalities, and we could talk about this on the course, and we'll identify those money personalities in the attendees on the course, so they can start to understand that different money personalities mean that different decisions are made on different things, including podiatry. And so it's really important to let go of your projection of your own money values onto your patients.
Yeah, I think it's so true because your perception of what something is worth could be completely different to somebody else's perception. And they might think, oh, no one's prepared to spend, say, $100 to get some form of foot treatment at a podiatry clinic. Yet they'll go and drop $100 at lunch with their wife and not
Yeah,
even give it a second thought. So if they're prepared to spend $100 down at the pub, why
yeah.
would they not spend $100 in your podiatry clinic if it gets them out of pain? I tell you right now, if somebody said, Tyson, eat this hamburger, it'll cost you $100 and you won't have back pain, I'd spend the $100 on a hamburger.
Yeah.
We-
Absolutely. People will spend on their health. And I think you mentioned about COVID and the changing COVID. I think this is one of the things that has changed around public behaviour, is that they've actually realised that it's really important to value their health and invest in their health. That's why
Yeah.
when lockdown came along, everybody went out walking, didn't they? They tried to go out walking if they were allowed to, or took running or whatever. Yeah. And
Or you
now
pretended you were walking just to catch up with friends. Walk past them.
yeah.
How you doing?
And now, people have carried that on and thinking they want to get their health problems sorted quicker rather than waiting for them to be sorted. And that's certainly what we're seeing, because we have the NHS here and we have private practice. We are seeing that very much, that patients can't get into the NHS, can't get to see their doctor, can't get that free care, and they're just going, you know what, I can't take this money with me. I'm better off spending it on my health and looking after myself. So private practice reaps the rewards of that, and we can deliver such a great level of care to those patients, so they're getting fixed, so they're keeping active, healthy, and living a fulfilling life.
Okay, so we will be on the day talking about increasing your income. We'll be talking about changing your values. And we'll be doing there'll be a lot of interaction with the people that are actually there for the 2 days as well, because that's when I find you get the best learning, is when you have a thought in your head and you might put it out, then you realize, oh, I'm not the only one that thinks this way. And then when you start having a discussion and there might be someone that has a different point of view, you go, that's actually interesting. And I
Yeah,
think that's
absolutely.
the strength in numbers.
Yeah, yeah, and it's an absolute must thing of it is that it's engagement, especially for me coming from the UK, coming over to Australia, and trying to understand any differences that there are between the two provisions of healthcare. But at the end of the day, patients are still the same. It's the same whether there's an Australian or a British person being treated. They've got the same needs, the same wants, the same different money personalities. That's the standard across the world. It's only the provision of the service that might be slightly different between two countries,
Oh,
and that's only a small difference, really. But what I find really important with when we're doing the courses is to make it memorable for people, because if
yeah.
it's memorable, they'll remember the message that was associated with it. So we have a lot of game playing in the course as well, to make sure, because game playing, you remember doing physical things, you remember that fun thing that you did, and if there's a message associated with it that helps with their learning, then that really sinks in, and they'll take it back to their practice, and they'll apply it to their day-to-day practice. So yeah, it's a fun course.
Yeah, the other part I find interesting when you do a small workshop, because our goal is to have no more than 30 people there, is that group who are there over the 2 days will become friends with each other, and they will continue to bump into each other at future events. And it's surprising that camaraderie you get between a small group when they're like that. I've done some marketing workshops in the past where there may have been 12 people at it, but those 12 people are still all in contact today. And every now and then you'll bump into them. They go, oh, I was just talking to such and such. And they realize how they still bounce ideas off each other years after the event.
Absolutely, and you've actually done an episode of this, because one of the first works Not Harders was Amy McLean, and she did Finding Your Podiatry Gang,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was how she found her podiatry gang. It was the Work Smarter Not Harder gang that she found, and yes, it's still in a group talking and supporting each other for their personal and business lives.
So that's why I reckon anyone who, like, if you live in Brisbane and you own a podiatry business, 21st and 22nd of July, there's no reason why you can't be there, unless there's a wedding on, or you're planning something else. It might have an overseas trip. That's fine. But if you're going to be in Brisbane that time, I'm just going to give a plug now. Go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, click on events, and just follow the links from there and book yourself in. Anyway, the other part I was going to talk to you about the beliefs and values around money was I posted something in one of the Facebook groups about 5 reasons why you should attend. And then you reposted it in one of the UK podiatry pages. And then somebody there commented and went, oh, I don't think, the health system in Australia is completely different to the health system in the UK. I don't think an Australian podiatrist can teach us anything about making money if you're from the UK. And because I think you made a comment, hey, here's an excuse to come to Australia and have a tax deductible trip. And what I thought was hilarious about that was this: I'm sitting there just shaking my head going, really, running a business is running a business. Doesn't matter what country. And yes, there's little things that are a bit different, no different to like how podiatrists run things in America. Their medical system is different, but the way you run a business is the same. But what she didn't click on was this program was a UK program. You're a UK podiatrist who's coming to Australia, and you and
Yeah.
I are just adapting it for the Australian audience.
Absolutely. And you say about running the business is the same. The public, as I mentioned, are the same. It's the same patients. There's no difference. There may be nuances in delivery of the systems, but actually legally or whatever. But the actual business itself and the customers of the business, no difference worldwide. It's absolutely the same. So the message applies at all. You know, work smart, not hard message. Your own marketing messages, they're the same. You know, it doesn't matter where it is geared at. And I know when you came over to the UK and you delivered your marketing course here, you know, it was just as appropriate here as it was in Australia.
That was a fun day.
Yeah, we had fun. Gameplay again. You did gameplay, and that made it memorable. You know, so I still remember some of the messages you gave us on that day, and that's saying something from the way my memory works.
No, that was a fun workshop. So also, and it's not just about, okay, it's increasing your income, which is really important, but we're also going to be talking about becoming more efficient with what you do day to day, because if you become more efficient, you can do more. And if you can do more in a day without any extra effort, which is by working smarter, then once again, that also has a major effect on the revenue you make in the end.
I will give them time for free. I will show them how to get time for free, using some of the principles in improving your efficiency section. Definitely.
How much time?
Enough to make a difference to them and their practice and their patients.
Okay, that's all right. So you said there were four basic things we're covering. One is increasing income. What was the second thing?
Improving your efficiency.
Improving your efficiency. There you go. I'm paying attention. That was number two.
Yeah. And the third was reducing your costs.
Now that is really important, because sometimes it's fine. I've said to someone, it doesn't matter how much you make. It's how much you keep, which is important. So you get have someone with $1 million practice that turns over $1 million a year, but they only keep 150,000, and somebody else that makes, I was talking to someone the other day, and they only turn over about, I think it was about 350,000 a year is what their turnover is, but they're keeping about 250 of it.
Yeah.
No, and they were asking me, I was wondering what I should change, or if I should do this. And I went, you happy with what you're making? They went, yeah. Do you love podiatry? They went, yeah. Do you really want to employ anybody else? I went, no, not really, but I just thought that was what I had to do. I went, don't do it. You don't have to do it.
Sounds like a similar practice to mine, doesn't it? It's just that smaller scale practice that provides a very good standard of living and service to the patient, being able to reinvest in any equipment that they need. It's a great solution to a podiatry practice.
Yeah, so I think that reducing your costs is super important. And as soon as you start taking on staff members and all that, it's even more important to understand where your money's going, so that it doesn't just get blown.
Yes, yeah. Wasted money is really important to avoid if you can.
Especially with new graduates. I don't know if you ever noticed, but when we're at university, we waste stuff. We just, it doesn't cost us anything. We're just chopping things up and throwing, that blade, I've used it for 2 seconds. I'm going to throw it and just go and grab another one. And we just carve through so much stuff as a new graduate. So I think if you employ new graduates, which I used to love employing new graduates, it was my favorite thing. And because I loved training them as well, it was a lot of fun. But one of the things that I really had to look at was what they were using, the materials that they were going through, and their not just their time efficiency, but just the stuff they use. It's like they were eating it in the back room there sometimes.
I'm a really big advocate of padding in podiatry. I love a bit of good padding. And you see them, they'll take a big piece of scruffy felt and they'll cut a hole in the middle of it for the pad. And you think, start in the corner. You want to so much the padding.
Geez. Maybe that's how they teach them at uni. Now grab this big sheet and just cut a hole in the middle. Yes, that's right. That you're doing that perfect, because when you get your first job, that will annoy the hell out of whoever you work for. So you've ticked the box on, yes, you can do annoying padding. Now, let's use one hole of strapping tape on somebody's feet, and let's not charge them for it. Let's make
Yeah.
everything free.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. The thing that podiatry has come from, and I'm glad to see it changing. I'm quite honoured that I feel that I've had a part in that change. Is this move away from flat rate fee structures and giving everything you possibly can for free to the patient, so they have it has no value to them. They don't
Yeah.
value it at all, and it's just crippling you as a business owner.
Yeah, I saw somebody just recently, they're posting something about silicon wedges for patients. And someone was actually asking, oh no, I just include that in the cost of the treatment.
Mm.
And I'm like, why? As
I
soon
know.
as you give something to a patient for free, then they expect it free. I heard this really good story once, and there was this goes back, I don't even know if this story is true, but it doesn't matter because it's a good story. Let's not let truth get in the way of a good story. There was this company, and it was Christmas, so the company was doing really well, and the owner of the company gave everybody a turkey for Christmas. So this story must come from the UK or America, because it's not turkey time in
Okay.
Australia. Doesn't happen at Christmas. Anyway, the next couple of years gave everyone a turkey, gave everyone a turkey, gave everyone a turkey. But all of a sudden, they had a really lean year. Did not have a good year at all, to the point where they didn't really make any money. Couldn't afford to give everyone a turkey, so didn't give anyone a turkey. They went on strike because they did not get their turkey.
Did I get the turkey? Wow.
And they refused to go back to work unless they got the turkey. And he was like, I do not have the money there to give you a turkey. And they refused to come back to work unless they got the turkey, and the company closed down
Oh
over
wow.
a bloody turkey.
Turkey.
And I've heard true stories of companies in Australia here who have been at loggerheads with unions over the stupidest things,
Mm.
and eventually have just closed up because, you know what, I don't really need to do this. I've got other businesses that make far more money.
Yeah, yeah,
How this
yeah.
relates to podiatry: when you give a patient a silicone wedge, you strap the foot. If you give them anything for free and you keep doing that, they're going to keep expecting it.
Yeah. It brings us back to the thing that I developed, that foot value course. Yeah,
Yeah.
is that we've got to show them there's value in looking after their feet properly. Yeah, and they don't really get that until something goes wrong and we put it right. We don't put it right for free for them. What we have to do is provide value in the solution that we do for them. Yeah, and that's where charging for silicons makes sense. It's a real value having a silicon device, because it means they can be cured or not need as regular treatments, and certainly be out of pain, and that has a real value for them.
Yeah, well, I know earlier on, if I gave a silicone wedge to a patient for free, the amount of times that patient lost the silicone wedge, uh, lost count of how many times that would happen. When I started charging for a silicone wedge, it said, oh, I can make this thing up for you. It'll be $25, whatever the price was at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I made it for them. It's surprising how many of them never lost them.
Absolutely, and they'll make them last.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won't tear them off their foot. They'll take it off gently, and so it lasts longer. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tyson.
And then if they do lose them, they say, oh, I can't believe I lost that silicone wedge. And they actually feel bad that they lost it. Is there any chance, yeah, can I get another one made? Like, yeah, no problem. The fee hasn't changed. And they go,
Yes.
not a problem. And they would
Yeah.
happily pay it because they knew the benefit of that silicone wedge.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely.
And
Definitely.
that's just one aspect. It could be replacing covers on orthotics. It could be a number of different things where all those little things add up over a period of time.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk about marginal gains on the course and show you the importance and the difference marginal gains can make to your clinic. And it really is quite phenomenal. It has the ability to transform you and your business for the rest of your life. I mean, these marginal gains are really powerful.
Well, it's like discounting. I posted something just a while back in a Facebook group, and it just said asking a business to have it take a discount is like asking an employee to work for 8 hours but only be paid for 4.
Yeah.
And I know I've had staff members say, "Oh, but why don't you give pensioner discounts?" And I go, and just might have been a receptionist. Okay, that's not a problem, Barbara. If you're prepared for me to pay you $24 an hour instead of $28 an hour, I will do that. Oh no. And they never want you to take the money off of them, but they
No,
don't
no.
see that when you give a discount, that is money that's actually getting taken off of
Yeah,
you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And I think
So,
and so we are going to talk about this a lot about
we will,
discounting and
yeah,
how,
we will do that on there as well.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and how it affects the bottom line of your business. And sometimes people think, oh, but it's only $5. But that $5 could be 25% of your profits,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
has a huge
Look,
impact on the rest of your business.
yeah, we will be looking at all of that, definitely.
God, this is going to be a fun 2 days. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
this because you and I have not done this together. You've got your thoughts on doing things. I have my thoughts on doing things. And when our two bald heads clashed together, we should get a logo done with two bald heads banging together. Bald
Well, of course,
thoughts.
this is I've done this before with Tony Gavin of Osgo. This
Yeah.
is how it all came about. Yeah, where it was his thoughts and my thoughts, and we brought them together. And Tony always paid in the compliment. He'd always sit and listen to whatever I said. Bear in mind, we did lots of courses together. He said every time I listen to you, I learn something new. And that's incredible from Tony, who's a brilliant businessman. Yeah, for him to sit there and want to hear what I have to say around podiatry and improving your business and your patient care. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be great for anybody who comes on the course. I've got a graph to share with you, actually, Tyson. If you
Before you get onto before you get onto
yeah.
the graph for the people who are watching
Yeah.
the video, I agree with Tony though. I wouldn't have you on the podcast as often as I do if I didn't think I learned something every single time that you're on here.
Okay, that's really nice. Thank you. It's only
Because
I'm old.
yeah, and because you're old, yeah. You've probably made more mistakes than most, which is why you're good at what you do.
Oh yes, definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
share away.
Okay, so this was just to show a journey, a work smarter, not harder journey, really, for anybody who's watching on the video, and basically it's shown the growth in her private practice over the past 23 years. And this is my private practice, and we have three graph lines here. We have a total taking, so that's total turnover graph, which is the green line. We have a total number of hours, clinical hours worked, which is the red line at the bottom. And the key thing to show is through applying work smarter, not harder principles, you see how there's a big difference between the growth or change in the amount of revenue coming into the practice, either average taking per appointment, which is the blue line, or the total turnover, and the amount of hours worked. Yeah, you can see that there's this huge difference. So basically, we've been very constant with how much clinical time we give, make available to the patients. But look at the growth in revenue for the practice that then can be reinvested, which means that you get even more growth. So it's a no-brainer for people to come on the course, just to take some of these principles away with them. And I always claim that what they learn on the course, within 1 week, it will pay for the cost of the course and the accommodation and everything. It's a very worthwhile investment, and then that carries on for the lifetime of their business.
Yeah, but the other part too, for anyone who's listening to this and they're driving the car, I've taken a screenshot of this diagram, which I will put in the show notes. So if you want to go and have a look at it, so pretty much as a visual, if you're driving in your car at the moment, it is pretty much, it's just showing a line where the amount of hours that Jonathan has worked has pretty much stayed the same, but the profit has actually gone up a lot. The total takings, the average takings per appointment, especially, and the hours that you worked. And you can even see the correlation where there's the hours where your hours dropped. And yes, the total takings dropped as well, but the average takings per appointment went up.
Yeah, that was COVID year. That was, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a great diagram to have. And like you said, anyone who comes along for the 2 days, you will make your money back so quickly afterwards.
Yeah,
and that's the difference, because I know some people are tossing up. I did a post the other day, and it just said, "Oh, you're tossing up between the National Podiatry Conference or the Work Smarter Not Harder 2-day event because they're a month apart." You're thinking, "Oh, they're both in Brisbane. I can only go to one." I know where I would be spending my money. based on what you're going to take away from it and apply to your business on Monday. So if you're
Yeah,
sitting on the
absolutely.
fence and you're still tossing up, do I pay the $1,700 to go to the national conference, or do I pay $795? I think it is Australian dollars, which if you happen to be overseas, if you're American, you want to come to Australia for a holiday, it's almost free because your dollar is so good. So,
Yeah,
okay, you said, well, yeah,
I was going to say what I've got to do is with these graphs is try and make sure that I put in Australian dollar rates so people can see what the figures are like in
they're
Australian
smart
dollars.
enough to figure it out. Yeah, like if someone looks at pounds and they can't figure it out, just times it by 2. It's the easiest, to me, that's the easiest way to work it out in your
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
So I don't think you need to go to too much trouble and go, oh, look, this is pounds, not dollars. They'll figure it out. But you said there's 4 things. So one
Yeah,
was making more money, efficiency,
yeah,
costs, and what was the 4th
yeah.
thing?
Planning for your future.
Oh,
Okay, so
yes.
this is in Work Smarter Now Harder one. The original was planning for your personal future and how important that is. Okay, because it's fine to have a business if you've got no if you thought it's only of the time that you're in that business and you haven't thought about your future, you're going to come unstuck as you get older. So
Yeah.
it was looking at what you needed to do to make sure you had security. Security is one of my big drivers, one of my key values, and having security into your own old age, so you're not having to go to the podiatrist to say, "Can you do it cheaper for me? I don't want you to put your prices up." Yeah, so
Mm.
that actually you can invest in your own healthcare and enjoy the life that you want going forward. So there's a section on planning for your future.
I had this couple once here in Cairns. Husband and wife, they were both journalists for like the local newspaper. Prior to that, they were working for some of the bigger newspapers down south. They had traveled the world. They'd done everything. There's to come in as patients. They'd tell me all the crazy stuff they got up to, husband and wife. Mad as cut snakes. And they pretty much, for 50 years, worked as journalists, made good money, and they pissed their money against the wall. And they came to me one day and they said, "Oh, Tyson, just wondering, we both come in at the same time. Could you give us a discount?" And I said, "Oh, hang on." I said, "So you pissed your money against the wall for 50 years. You didn't save anything. You lived like there was no tomorrow. Yet, unfortunately for both of you, you keep living. You're living much longer than you expected.
Yeah.
But now you expect me to give you a discount." I said, "If I give you a discount, I will be in the same boat as you. And I don't want to have to put the pressure on my podiatrist in the future, or my dentist, or my physiotherapist, surgeon, and all the other medical people I'm going to need. I don't think it's fair that I should put that pressure on them."
Yeah.
And they just went, "Oh, okay." And they just paid, and they just kept
Yeah.
coming back. They didn't get the
Yeah.
shits with me. They just went, "I get it."
Yeah, because what you did was you pointed out to them they got a bit of a mindset block around it, and you pointed out to them the reality of the situation is that they made choices, and you shouldn't suffer as a result of their choices.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they were climbing up a pyramid.
Yeah,
They weren't thinking about, oh, maybe in 20 years' time, we might need this money to look after ourselves. They were in the
absolutely.
moment of just enjoying themselves. So I think it's
And
really important for podiatrists to look at the long game, plan for the future, and put a plan in place that I want to be here at this time, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years down the track. Where do you actually want to be?
yeah. So this is a key part to make sure that we're protecting the podiatrists throughout their career and their journey in private practice, so that they can enjoy their whole life, not just their working life, but the rest of their life.
Yeah. And on the day, I've got this is story that I can run through, which is like a visualization thing that will take people way into the future and then
Oh, excellent.
bring them back to reality. And when you do this, you just go, "Oh my God."
I think I know
I've
this
had it,
one. Yeah,
I've had it done on me a couple of times, and I do it myself. Every now and then I
yeah.
take myself through this and I come back again and I go, "Wow, thanks for the reminder, future Tyson."
Yeah, yeah.
So to wrap up, Jonathan, have you got
And,
anything else you would like
yeah,
to say?
so that's just day one.
Oh my
All
God,
of that is
that's day
just day
one.
one. Yeah, okay. So we've got twice as much get through than over the 2 days. So that's just a teaser into day one. It's going to be such a fun 2 days. The people are going to get so much from it, and their patients are going to absolutely benefit from it all.
Yeah. And day two, we're going to be doing a lot of practical activities, like you said, a lot of gameplay. We're going to be doing different things, doing stuff as a group. So I'm really looking forward to it. And my wife is looking forward to it as well. She's coming along. Your son's going to be there. He's going to be there helping out. It's going to be a real family affair. It'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be such an enjoyable course. We've never had a bad review for the course. It's always been brilliant reviews. Everybody said that how useful it was, how engaging it was, how helpful, just how transformational it was. It's a very worthwhile thing. I'm so glad I went to the effort to put it together to help people so that they can become the best version of themselves.
Yeah, so I know so far there's a couple of people from Perth coming over. There's some from Sydney. There's some from South Australia. We've got Central New South Wales. And I think we do actually have someone from Brisbane.
Excellent.
Sort of scattered around. So the good part is they're coming from around the country, which would be great. Good to have a couple of Kiwis over here would be good. So just across the river, across the ocean.
As you mentioned, it's a tax deductible expense, isn't it? They can from anywhere in the world they could come over, have a bit of a break in Australia and tie in the course.
And I tell you, Brisbane in July is absolutely one of the best places to be. Not as good as Cairns, but it is still pretty good. And when you're down south and it's July and you're sitting there on the 21st and 22nd of July and you're freezing your ass off down south, we will be enjoying ourselves. So, Jonathan, anything else to wrap up before we wrap up with this? Even though this podcast may seem like a little bit of self-promotion, which I don't think there's anything wrong with, a little bit of shameless self-promotion. Everybody should be doing it with their podiatry business. They should be out there doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that we haven't mentioned, we did mention the original Work Smart, Not Harder, and it's a key principle that both in your book and on my course is not to think that all patients are the same. There are different types of patients, and you want to attract those patients to your practice that make you happy and you make them happy, because then your life will be happy. And you don't want the C and D patients, you want the A and B patients. And it's the best way for you to have a fulfilling, happy life and happy work life by surrounding yourself with A and B people in that life. And we do it in our private lives. We have A and B family members, C and D family members, A and B friends, C and D friends. It's the same. It's everybody around us. They will be one of these type of people who will have an influence on us. And if we surround ourselves with too many dire people, we're going to be drained and feel very disappointed in what we're doing. Whereas if you surround yourself with all your A patients, your awesome people in your life, then you'll just have the happiest life.
I have to agree with you 100%. And you are one of my A friends, Jonathan. In case you're wondering.
Thank you, Tyson.
So, and I do try and avoid the CGDs. I've got a whole new diagram on this too about the whales and the blowflies.
Oh yes, you talk about whales and blowflies.
Yeah, so we'll be using. So Jonathan, thank you very much for coming back on the podcast. This has been fun as usual. And like I used to say to people earlier on some of the podcasts, if you listen to this and you did not get something from it, you need to take 2 Panadol, give yourself a bit of an uppercut, come back and listen to it again. So, Jonathan, thank you very much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me again. It's brilliant.
Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.